Humans are disgusting. Every species had high hopes for humanity. When they first made contact, humanity had just barely survived their last almost planetary conflict. The weapons used sent out so many signals into the ether, it was like firing a fully automatic human weapon into a closed location. Everybody stops and everybody looks. Every species that heard this, saw this, or found it on their sensors was able to rush towards the humans' homeworld and showed up to find what was happening. They all believed they would find a dead planet, an empty world. Great for a lesson for the young ones of what not to do, as this what happens with young species, most of them anyway. Explore their technologies a little bit, find out their secrets. Yet, what shocked all the species was to see humanity simply rebuilding, not from the ashes, but simply adjusting from the militaristic stance that they had to a peaceful one. It is as though they just stopped trying to destroy themselves, stopped trying to end their own world, and just went back to living life. Out of curiosity, the first few species contacted Earth. The population at first didn't even believe that contact occurred, as they had been lied to by their own leaders so much. That is, until the first vessels landed in the center of populated areas. These population centers usually had those that came over many times hurrying as fast as they could on their two legs. Others seemed to pull out some sort of projectile weapon and discharge them towards the craft. First contact is always odd, that's to be expected, and soon enough, after the humans were contacted by multiple species, the universe got to know their new neighbor. Less than 10 of their solar rotations later, many humans were taken on as crew on different ships as they wished to explore beyond their cradle world. This was expected by any young species. Most took on humans as a sign of pity, if nothing else. But it was not long before every ship crew wanted at least one human on board. As it turned out, humans are not only insanely reliable, but they seem to take pride in their work, excessively so, to the point where they get agitated if they cannot complete a task or can't complete it within a certain time frame. Their very strong, muscular, covered exoskeleton moves in a way that they can adjust cargo, and they can move cargo and personnel extremely fast. They are very quick. So quick, it's absolutely insane. Not only can they figure out how to adjust to make things faster and more efficient, they are especially good at stacking cargo. It is strange. They insist to bring the large items in first, and once they are stowed, the humans can take all the small pieces of cargo and somehow find places for just about anything else. This led to most of the cargo ships being able to have 10 to 30% increase in what they could move at a single time, and profits for everyone begin to rise. We say everyone, as the humans instituted a percentage pay for moving cargo once they realized they could cram far more cargo inside each ship. This was accepted, at first very hesitantly, but they realized that this motivated the crew to move even faster, which meant more cargo moved, which meant more money in everyone's pocket. The human medical personnel are also the first ones to respond. It is as though they have preemptive knowledge and training, and ended up saving many, so many that is uncalculable, from loss of life, limb, or their vision. Sometimes even their sensor packets are even saved, because the humans are there quick, and it seems as though they know what to do with each and every species before they even arrive. If they don't, they simply pick the creature up, whoever or whatever it was who was damaged, and run them to the medical facilities with such speed and precision it is almost frightening. For a while, no one expected humans to get even more efficient at what they did. That is, until the day the universe met the sleuths. The sleuths are a gelatinous species, the only sentient one found so far, and everyone is hoping they are the only ones. You see, at first the sleuths did not care to work with others, and the feeling was mutual, especially after you met one. Seeing a bunch of adult sleuths, you would see a plethora of different colors, yet they're all primary colors, all 7, at least in the human spectrum. We see all 9. And yet, they're almost all identical to look at. When you see a young one that is freshly born, well, if you call that born from one of these things, then it is completely transparent. Over time, and building their own individual personality, they change colors to promote their personal primary color and their personal agenda, or if you want to say, their attitude. This is why those that have worked with other species usually end up turning a strange mucus yellow-green, basically telling the universe that they hate life. Because of this, when humans first saw them, they actually called them boogers. They had to be constantly corrected of this as nobody wanted to offend the sleuths because they were very, very helpful. No other species liked working with the sleuths, though, as they are constantly changing shape, giving off no scent unless they actually want to. Or they are in a specific emotional state, then maybe they would change their shape or change their scent. The slight moist feeling gets all over the fur of most species and just doesn't leave even after extensive grooming, which makes many not want to be close, even to stop any type of accidental touching of it. When they speak through vibration, and they move around the ship in ways that make others constantly worry they're getting watched or listened to. Because of the way they are formed, we didn't hold it against them personally, but if you cannot speak correctly, many of those with strong auditory, when they hear the vibration from the sleuth, it would be a bit painful, at least until the sleuth learns to calm down its vibrations. Along with that, the constant changing of form is enough for those who do not have visual receptors to be a little confused at what they're sensing. They couldn't figure it out. And of course, any species that primarily uses its sense of smell would be completely confused, as they would not even understand what the sleuth is saying, doing, or anything of that. Because of all this, no other species even wanted to be around the sleuths. That is, until the humans ended up meeting them. The first recorded meeting of a human and a sleuth is aboard the frigate Menkati Drift. Of course, this is something everyone deals with, as there is a lost in translation of all ship names that are not terrestrial to you. The human was hired to aid with cargo loading and unloading as a primary, and they would be a medical staff as a secondary. When the human arrived, he introduced himself to the crew, to include the single sleuth on board. Everyone assumed that the human had heard of these, as he called it a booger, and was again reprimanded and said not to do so. Yet to everyone's shock, he paused and went up to the sleuth and introduced himself, holding out one of his long manipulators. Everyone was again shocked, as the sleuth paused, as though it was confused, and then produced a tentacle to reach out, wrap around the man's hand, and they actually, as the humans say it, shook hands. It was one of the strangest things anyone had seen at that point. Yet things would get stranger, because the human and the sleuth are able to move in ways that most species just can't. And they ended up working together a lot. In many cases, the sleuth would be there to work as a secondary to the human. If the human dropped the tool, the sleuth could go and get it. The human had knowledge, but sometimes he couldn't reach things that he needed to reach, and that the sleuth was able to do so. The sleuth was able to get in areas and simply follow instruction, or simply relay something back from inside the tubes back to everyone else. In one case, this allowed them to get the human out of the access panel as he was thoroughly stuck. During the long trip, it was actually normal for them to play a human game whenever not working. a human game they called hide and seek. Eventually, a few of the more predatory species would join them, and this surprised everyone as they would actually hunt down the sloot. And of course, this aided in morale a lot. However, they did not realize how good a human would be at being able to hide from everyone. However, he could never, ever hide his scent, especially if he got excited or started to perspire profusely. This will allow those who simply use their sense of smell to simply put their snout in the air. He's over there, as that's all you would hear. No one knows how or why, but as they were about to reach the station called Lichtig, the human and the sloot both walked in to the main chow hall. The sloot had actually taken the form of a human and was walking. No one understood this. The sloot had actually taken the form of the human, and those that use other sensors besides photoreceptors began to have issues, many of them seemingly freaking out, as the humans would say, trying to understand what was going on. They could not wrap their first, second, or third minds around what was happening. Those that could see noticed the shape and the new shade of light blue that the sloot had gotten. This surprised them all, as it showed that the sloot was no longer depressed at what it had to do, and they were able to calm everyone else down and let them know what was going on. Though not enough to get others to actually touch the sloot. With the introduction of the waterproof suit once they got to the station, things got easier to deal with them, and they were able to have full-on conversations and actually sit in the chow hall and enjoy a meal together, even though it was still strange to watch the sloot simply absorb their meal into the body. At least this time, once it passed the collar of the suit, they didn't have to stare at it as it digested. This helped with everybody not being totally disgusted dealing with the sloot, yet soon enough, they would return to being disgusted. While having some time off on the stations, the humans would hang out with the sloot. The sloot stayed close because, well, as it turns out, the human fluids that they use to cool their homeothermic bodies is actually quite pleasant to the sloot. They enjoy the flavor. The sloot also do not like the cold at all, so much so that many of them have a phobia of being anywhere near 0 point centigrade, as being frozen is one of the only surefire ways to kill a sloot. Now, everybody knew that humans pack bonded fairly quickly with others, whether it be other humans or any other species. In fact, they'll pack bond with the ship that they're on, pack bond with trinkets that they hold onto themselves, and yet it seemed as though they pack bonded very, very strongly with the sloots, as word traveled around that other humans and other sloots, it was difficult to see one without the other. The sloot to the humans was actually, as it turns out, nice and cool. In some cases, when they rested, which was often compared to everyone else, the humans would say it's a nice pillow, a nice bed to lay on, nice and soft, or a cool blanket to wrap around as they sleep. This is because humans actually get warmer when they sleep, and since humans sweat while they sleep, the sloot get to eat. They get to consume their favorite meal. Both species tried to keep it a secret, but word actually got out soon enough that humans have another nocturnal function that the sloot found tasty, to the point of intoxicating. Since humans do not actually have a mating season, like everyone else has to return back to their homeworlds to take care of that. If a human does not mate for approximately 30 to 50 human planetary rotations, they have a release of the old and worn out, wasted reproductive fluids. It was not long after this that was discovered that the sloot used their ability to change shape to, well, something more pleasant to the visual cortex of the humans. In doing so, the sloot could actually entice a human and receive this intoxicating drink every 24 standard hours, approximately. I say approximately, simply because sometimes it's more often, sometimes it takes longer, but they will still receive this beverage of theirs. The knowledge and realization that humans and sleuths would spend much of their downtime doing such things truly disgusted the rest of the crews, to the point that many crews either made up of only these two species, the human and sleuth, or they would have one on board but not the other, making sure they didn't have both just to keep morale up enough and make sure efficiency was high enough. By this point, you only needed one or the other to make sure you were efficient, because the sleuth learned very quickly to manage their body, move them into areas, and actually check the size of other packages to see if they would fit in that area. If they did so, they would simply reach out with several tendrils, grab a hold of that container, and move it in. A few of the younger sleuths had to learn really quick that their bodies are not liquid all the way. They're still somewhat rigid, even though they can actually maneuver their body. Consider it like a water balloon. Almost. Sort of. It's difficult to explain. With humans on board, it was always good, because thankfully humans still pack bond with other species very well, and still first to aid others, and first to increase productivity and morale across. Yet one seems to wonder, are they pack bonding? Are they becoming symbiotic with other species? Or were they just trying to mate? It wasn't until the incident aboard the Vengeful Circuit, again confusing on the name, this would be one of the first time that a new species that had entered the galactic community, the amphibious Gladall, was on board. In fact, they were the doctor of the ship. And when the executive officer went to see if they had pulled, twisted, or in other ways damaged themselves, they walked into the infirmary and they caught the doctor in the certain act, a mating act with a human female and their sleuth friend, that had somehow turned itself into a quivering mass of slick tentacles. And everyone had the answer of what the humans were after at that point. They realized humans will pack bond with species, ships, even trinkets. Humans will get into a symbiotic relationship to those they can, and humans will mate with anything willing. Cortez finished up his story at that point, looking across the group of new recruits that were just now going to be on a ship for the first time. Perhaps this is why there's another large demand for humans to join crews just like us, one of the recruits asked. Don't tell me the Gladall had gotten addicted to the humans too, another cadet exclaimed. Well, it's not just them. Gladell took 4 of his hands and hit on his head, going, "Oh, this is going to make things messy." Don't worry, I hear the sleuths will simply just lick it up. That's not what I meant. Hello everybody, it's Syntax. Thank you so much for joining me on today's short story. Before I go, I need to send out some special thank yous to a few of my supporters, and those will be Erica Gem, Guardian Sage, The Black Trapper, MTF Guard, Brian Kemp, SS Demon, Chris Dixon, and Cause Lynn. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax, punching out.